Thank you, everybody, for coming out. My name is Randy Wintle, and I'm going to talk to you guys today about the business case to deploy Lync. I've worked throughout the years with organizations on understanding the business case for unified communication solutions. And what I want to do in this session is give you an overview. It might be a little bit different than what you're used to seeing, which is really heavily focused on, or what you may be used to seeing is heavily focused on charts that show how much money you can save with Lync and how bringing conferencing in-house is going to pay for everything, and just kind of help you build a methodology for actually building a business case for Lync in your organization that matches what your organization does. Because often it's not as easy as just using the templates that Microsoft has or making assumptions based on what some people call industry standards around unified communications and with Lync. So that's kind of the approach I'm going to take today, and hopefully that's what we come up with at the end of this is you'll walk away understanding how you can find unique ways to save the business money, because that is what it really does come down to with a business case. Again, Randy Wintle, I work with Modality Systems, so we are a consulting organization, a global consulting organization. So that's where a lot of my experience comes from, but I've been working with the Lync product in a heavy technical background back since the LCS days. So this is, in the last few years, has been my new baby, if you will, around helping organizations figure these things out. So as a quick introduction, I'm born and raised and live in the great state of Maine. Right about where that Bruins logo is about where I live. Go Bruins and go Team USA hockey. If I know today they won again. I'm a Microsoft MVP. You've probably seen a lot about the MVPs at the summit. They've been doing great, of giving us all a big high five, but that's a lot of fun. I wrote or co-authored Lync Server 2013 Unleashed. So this is a pretty decent book that we all put together around everything from business case to actual deployments of everything. And I also am a Microsoft Certified Master, which is no longer a program. So, but when it was one of the highest technical certifications you can achieve for Lync. I don't have any today, but we have them down at our booth. So Modality paid for some books down there. If you stop by, we can hand some out. Anyways, let's jump right into it. This slide kind of describes what I want to get across for a point today. So organizations, love them or hate them, actually do some pretty great things. They make awesome phones. They make clothes. They change the world. Maybe some of them are perceived a little more evil than others. But point is businesses, organizations do great things, and they do that because of the people that work there. Okay, so the people are core to business. And the people are the only reason that these businesses can make these awesome things. So they have a major impact on the world. But here's the problem today, and that is that these people at your organizations are overwhelmed with technology. Now, many of you may already be in the Lync world and may be experiencing some benefits from either Lync or other unified communication solutions. But this is really the problem. This is why unified communications and Lync specifically is so popular, because we can start to fix this. We can fix this level of frustration. And again, going back to the people of the organization being the most important asset at the organization, I truly believe that this is actually a pretty good visual representation of how most employees feel, whether they're information workers or retail employees or whatever it is, when it comes to using technology, specifically communications technologies today. So that is one reason. Starting to break into that a little bit more, and if we talk about information workers, the standard desk worker, finding the information that you're looking for inside an organization is really hard. Finding out what tool to use is really hard. I actually had to join a customer meeting today using what I thought was GoToMeeting. Turned out that the GoToMeeting audio wasn't what we were going to use, so we actually had to dial into a separate bridge. And that wasted about 30 minutes of the meeting trying to get people in a 1-hour meeting, because when you join GoToMeeting, it auto-joins audio, right? So, these are very basic things that happen that cause a lot of frustration. but not just with conferencing, with finding people in the organization, finding information in the organization. And then there's the inbox everything approach. So I would imagine a lot of people here have a lot of emails, have a lot of email coming in every day, sending out every day. Stuff gets lost in email, unfortunately. And sometimes it's actually easier to just do the task that you're trying to do rather than send an email about it. Rather than sending an email to that person, hey, even little things like, hey, you want to go to lunch today? You can do that with IM, right? We're used to maybe sending text messages with that. That's another problem that organizations have, the inbox everything approach. You lose context. You really lose track of what you're trying to do. Some scenarios, getting into what I described before with finding what you're looking for in the inbox everything approach, an example of that is, let's say that you're an employee at an organization trying to get an answer about your payroll or your health insurance benefits. And depending on the size of your organization, that can be pretty bad, right? So even without talking about actual business workflows and processes, just internal employee stuff, that's a nightmare. So imagine leveraging communication tools to make those processes easier. And then maybe taking it a step further and leveraging your communications tools in your line of business apps, right? That's what UC is all about. That's what Lync is all about. And then once you get your organization tidied up, everybody's working more efficiently, then maybe extending that same experience to your customers. So the core of Lync, the core of unified communications, is to simplify that and to bring better experiences to people inside your organization. So the key here is that the way to make a business case for Lync is to enhance the experiences for people inside and outside the organization, people that interact with your organization. Because when it comes down to it, that is what makes organizations money, okay? That provides value to the business. We can do big wins that are one-time wins by saving money with conferencing, by buying headsets instead of phones, right, when we're doing an upgrade. But it's finding scenarios like this that will dramatically change organizations for the better and really provide some real cash, right? And that's, again, I'm talking a lot about experiences and almost downplaying the financial side, but that's what it comes down to in the end as well. Making a business more successful by making it more efficient. And that's what unified communications is all about. And that's what Lync is all about. And with that, I talked a little bit about the overwhelming aspect of technology, right? How frustrated users can be, how frustrated people can be. But organizations, when it comes down to it, they spend a lot of money on communications tools. I basically just tried to put as many dollar signs around the world as I could, but this is, it's dispersed communications tools. It's a lot of them. It costs a lot to deploy and to support. And it also, in addition to having an impact on IT, has an impact on business users. Because it's harder for me in Maine to get a hold of somebody in California than it should be. And again, unified communications, Lync, fixes that problem, or should be fixing that problem. So what is unified communications? I'm sure most people here are relatively familiar with that, given the context of the conference we are at, but the idea around unified communications is really transforming that crazy guy wrapped in telephone cords into this guy, right? He's happy. He's doing a video call on his all Microsoft setup, right? This is the perfect marketing slide. But really, it's about simplifying that experience, bringing every communication tool that you could have into one experience and making it a better experience. And that's unified communications. Instant messaging, voice, video, conferencing, collaboration, all under one hood, one client, one experience. I had this in here. We saw Gurdeep give a great keynote yesterday, but this is a quote that I've loved from him going back a bit that was, the success of UC in a business will be when it's like salt in food. It's always there, but you don't see it. So, like I said, we can have one-time wins by introducing cool new conferencing experiences, but where we're really going to change organizations and provide value to the business is when we start to embed communications tools into the business and make it so that people don't even realize that they're gaining value out of this. It becomes natural. I think we heard Gurdeep talk about that yesterday too, right? making these things happen more naturally, predictability. That's a lot of future stuff. That's artificial intelligence. But even today, we can start to have success with that. So with that, let's talk about how we can be successful. Okay, so the biggest thing that I like to say is to start with why you're trying to do this. I've been reading a book. I read a book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why, which kind of inspired me to think about this. And basically, his book was around the most successful organizations always have an understanding of why. They're driven by their why. The most common example was Apple, was to challenge the status quo, right? That's why they were so successful. They don't talk about the features and all the cool things. They talk about why they make awesome devices and people buy it. And the biggest quote from the book is, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, okay? So that same methodology can be applied to trying to deliver technologies inside your organization or a customer's organization. So start to identify why Lync would be good for a business. And that's how you pave your way to success. And the reason why I'm saying this, I'm going to get into this in a little bit, is that it's not easy to justify putting in Lync. And we need to really make sure that if we're going to be successful with getting Lync into your own business, or if you're a consultant into your customer's business, that you have a clear understanding of why, and you can always go back to that why and reference the why when you are making decisions, and make sure that you're always following in that path. So what is a business case? Essentially, a business case is asking for money. This is the easiest way to put it, is that you most likely need to establish a business case to get permission to put in Lync, to buy things, right? This isn't just for IT. This is something that you have to do for nearly everything. There needs to be a good business plan, right? We're talking about a lot of money for most organizations. So common components in a business case. We have capital expenses and operating expenses. You'll see the terms CapEx, OpEx thrown around. CapEx is going to be stuff that you buy up front. Actual purchases. OpEx is going to be how much it's going to cost me to run this software, run this solution. Some organizations treat these a little bit differently, right? There may be a blend of CapEx, OpEx, and it can get a little bit confusing, but the basis of it is that capital expenses are what you buy to put something in, and operating is what it costs for you to run. It's like maintenance on your car. You buy the car, and then you're paying for all the oil changes. And on the slide here, you'll see some examples of what that looks like as far as Lync goes. And business cases are usually actually 3 to 5 years. I actually think it's pretty important when you're doing a Lync business case to put that out to 5 years. And I think I talk a little bit about this, but there's, you can do some basic calculations, basic spreadsheets, right, to just come up with how this is going to provide value to the business. And 5 years is a good number if you want to be successful with Lync, because Lync is a solution that can take some time to earn money back. And specifically because, like I'm going to show you in a minute, there's different types of costs. And like I said, we'll get those quick wins with conferencing, year 1, year 2. But you really start to see the huge value year 3, 4, and 5. Some more key terms. So ROI, return on investment. This is what the person who's going to approve that business case wants to see. If they're going to spend $1 million on something, they want to know when they're going to make that money back. Typically, Lync has been known for a great ROI, and that is still very true. But that's a pretty key term you're going to see. TCO, which is total cost of ownership. I have a slide here in the next slide showing exactly what that is like for Lync. But this is not just, I need to buy Lync licenses and pay a consulting company to put it in. This is network upgrades, headsets, support staff. I mean, we're talking, the name implies it, total cost of ownership. But there's a lot that goes into it. These last two actually get left out a lot. This is why I actually see some organizations fail with Lync. Committed costs and depreciation. So if you're coming into an organization and you're trying to make the business case for Lync, it is most likely going to be the case that Lync is cheaper than whatever they're doing today. Or Lync is cheaper than upgrading that Avaya or Cisco. Problem is that people have dual run costs, which means that you can't just come in on day one and shut something off and turn it back in and magically switch over to Lync, right? There's time periods where these things coexist. And then contracts, too. Leases, support contracts that are, maybe got renewed last year, licensing contracts. These things often get left out, and that's why year 2 and 3, an organization, a CEO or a CIO might be going, hey, where's my money? Why didn't I make that back? And go, oh, well, we kind of forgot that we had to pay for the Avaya for another year, right? That's something really important to think of. Depreciation. So this is also another interesting thing here, because most organizations, when they purchase large amounts of hardware or anything, this gets depreciated over time. So it might not hit the books in year 1, it might hit the books in year 1 through 3, year 1 through 5. Just in case you see that getting tossed around as well. Now these are all really like accounting terms, so we have to start, as people dealing with the technology, have to become a little bit familiar with them just so that we can help out here, because it's our job to make sure that the solution that we want to use and the solution that we want to implement is clearly communicated to the business, to accounting, to financials, around how much it's going to cost and how we're going to pay it back. So the TCO for Lync. This is a little word cloud. I had fun with a little word cloud generator. But the point here more is not to go ahead and look, and maybe you can read every one of these, but it's that there's a lot. Putting in Lync is not cheap, and I think that's on my next slide. But this is the type of stuff that you have to consider, right? We're buying servers, we're buying licensing. You're paying somebody to put it in. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're doing it yourself. But then you've got headsets. You've got Lync room systems. You've got third-party video systems, different phones, attendant consoles. You've got to pay the people that are running the wires to the new locations that you're now having to put in Ethernet cables. There's maintenance contracts to go along with this. Lync is promoted as a very easy solution, right? Because it is more friendly to Microsoft folks, but you still need to support it. You most likely need to pay somebody to help you support that so you can have help from an organization when you need it. And then I have committed costs in here, right? My dual run costs, my contracts, my leases, things that stick around that I still need to consider as my total cost of ownership for UC. And that's actually another interesting point I wanted to bring up, is that when you're looking at your business case for Lync, I often like to suggest that people do not, to develop a business case for unified communications in the organization. So, for example, I worked with a customer that had Avaya as a PBX, WebEx for conferencing, plus a third-party conferencing bridge and some Tamberg gear and so on. So that was their unified communication solution today. Now, if we look at if we start calling it the business case for Lync, we forget all those old things, right? Because we're only focused on Lync. Well, there's how you forget about your dual run costs. You forget about your contracts, and you have a really hard time showing where money goes down over time. So again, I guess to simplify it a little bit, just consolidate this down. So when you make your business case, take what you have today, add in Lync, and show how the bar goes down on the old solution. Lync might cost some more, and they all come down, right? So make it one big business case. And what that does is it helps whoever's making the approvals or looking at this understand that I'm not just paying for Lync, I'm paying for all these other solutions. And by putting in Lync, I can reduce my costs in the other solutions. So again, just make it one big business case and include all the old stuff in there as well. It will help you show the value over time. I also had adds, moves, changes in here, which some people might find interesting because Lync is supposed to be adds, moves, changes free, right? There's no more moving phones around and stuff. That's actually not the case. That's still a component there, right? You still have similar scenarios, whether it's analog phones and fax machines or support calls on setting up a desk phone, things like that. Those costs still exist. So that brings me to my bigger point, is that Lync is not free. I mentioned before that Lync is often promoted as a cheap solution, a easy solution, something you can just, you already own it, put it in, right? It's a, how many people have probably heard that, right? It's, don't even have to buy anything, it's already there, put it in. Well, even not talking about the licensing, if you may own it, you may not, there's the network impact, okay? So most organizations don't have all the cool stuff that Lync has today. If we want to enable those functionalities, we're going to blow up our network. So we have to improve the network. Now that might not always be the case, but it often is. So that is another component that needs to go into your business case, your total cost of ownership. Implementation services. As I mentioned, it's not as easy as it looks. You often do need to have somebody else help you out, or if you are a consultant, you know that already. And then endpoints. This one gets people a lot because headsets are cheaper than Cisco phones, but headsets still cost a lot of money. So I've seen it left out of the business cases at an organization many times. Most recently, even somebody forgot about it in their conferencing deployment. They were magically going to eliminate all their conferencing solutions and bring it into Lync and save tons of money by everybody joining through Lync. They didn't buy anybody headsets. So how are they going to join through Lync? Using their speakers, right? And then then Lync's not going to do a good job. It's going to be poorly adopted. Or they're just going to have to pick up their cell phone and call in again, and you're back to the same thing, right? Endpoints typically can be up to 50% of the capital expenses. So at larger organizations, this is millions of dollars. I recently did a business case for a company that was 25,000 employees, and it was $4 million for headsets. That's just for the endpoints. Licensing. The mystery that is Microsoft licensing, okay? I think the simplest way to put it is that you buy it and then you renew it. Now, since I've made this slide, I've found out that they're licensing everybody on the Office 365 model of a monthly fee. So it's getting a little bit easier to buy a monthly subscription service and deploy it on premises. But the point still is that if you buy all your Lync licensing in year 1, you need to renew that licensing in year 3 and pay what's called maintenance on it or software assurance. So it's not a one-time purchase, and that often gets people as well. So after bashing Lync a little bit and talking about how it isn't free, where can it actually save you money? So I think there's 3 key areas. Now, let's say when you look at this slide, left to right, it's the most difficult way to save money to the easiest way to save money. So far right here, hard costs would be, like I said before, these are our easy wins. Consolidating the PBX, taking all those dollar signs on the world map and shifting it down to a few dollar signs. SIP trunking, that's another big one. That's not unique to Lync, of course. You could deploy SIP trunking and save money on any platform. Conferencing services is a big one. That's one that Lync really is successful with. And that's one of the areas that it's often cheaper than other solutions is because we can take all of those expenses for third-party conferencing solutions and bring them in-house. Another one is real estate. So pretty much every organization that I've worked with over the last few years is trying to reduce their real estate footprint, right? They're moving into these modern workspaces. There's been different terms, agile workspaces to modern to shared workspaces, hot desking. That's a big area. You need a UC solution to enable that scenario. You need to be able to work from anywhere, not have a static desk with a hard line plugged into it. And that's an area you can save a lot of money. Also mobile phones. So organizations that pay for mobile phone usage at companies, they're using a lot of minutes, right? So adding in a VoIP solution, a mobile solution on UC saves money. And then support costs. Traditionally, Lync has been cheaper to support, meaning that the vendors that you pay support for is cheaper than Avaya, Cisco, et cetera. Soft costs, this is something that it's really hard to prove out. This is, like I said before, improving the user experience, making them more productive. You know, when you talk about one of the big things that Lync gets credit for is the meeting roster inside of a meeting. saving that 10 minutes in the beginning of every meeting to, all right, who just joined? Let me write it down. Who just joined? Let me write it down. That's something that people can use to calculate cost savings, right? You can say my employee's time is worth this much money, and you multiply that out. That's a soft cost, though, because that's something you can't put on paper and say, I was spending this much, I subtracted this much. It's really hard to track. Travel expenses are very similar. A little bit easier to track because you can probably see where employees have stopped spending as much on travel, but this is another area. And Lync isn't the only solution that can help you with travel expenses, but UC in general can. But this is an area that you should focus on in a Lync business case. The classic example is instead of flying from coast to coast for a meeting, you just meet over Lync with video, right? I mean, that's it can't replace all in-person interactions, but it can replace a lot of them. And this is becoming less and less common today. A lot of organizations have already cashed in on the travel expenses, if you will. So when telepresence was big, when a lot of this stuff started happening more with conferencing, they already kind of used that ticket. They said, hey, we already saved on travel expenses. But there's some organizations out there that can still benefit from this. CEBP takes increasing user productivity kind of the next level. So CEBP stands for Communications Enabled Business Process. I like to show this car on the screen because it's like taking that old clunky workflow or whatever it is that you have to do to, maybe it's even something as simple as submitting a timesheet or submitting an expense report and trading it in from the 97 Toyota Corolla to the Corvette or whatever, right? Because you're improving that experience so much more that it's able to actually save you money. A lot of this comes from time savings. We have bots at Modality, and we've deployed them at customers where instead of having to track down a person to talk to, I say, hey, I need help with this. And it finds the person for you. That's the type of stuff that we're looking to do, right? Because that's really hard to measure the costs. Again, that's hard to put on a spreadsheet and say you're going to earn this much money. But when you implement stuff like this, you start increasing the user satisfaction, increasing customer satisfaction. So we saw some examples this week of putting Lync on your website, right, and getting the customer interaction there. And that starts to make you more money. Easier to get a hold of people, right? Easier to get a hold of somebody to buy something from. So let's talk about some of the best practices for a Lync business case. As I mentioned before, you want to start with why. So I think that this is probably the most critical thing that you can do is have a vision, have a goal, have something that often happens at a leadership level, engage with the business. So we often see these things driven by IT. IT says, we're going to use this new solution because it's awesome. But you still miss a lot of the use cases. So I met with an organization last week. IT really wanted to do this cool new technology with Jabber and WebEx. Found out after they were about to replace it that this one very large, important department in their business was using Lync heavily for meetings before, and basically had to stop them from replacing it, right? So we engaged with that unit of the business, brought them in, had a session with them, and found all of these use cases that they didn't even know they could do with Lync, but they were already using it so much that they were getting so much value out of it. So we started talking with them about ways to improve their collaboration experiences in conference rooms. They have meetings with investors and with people on the board that are horrible today, and starting to improve experiences like that by, little things like having them join from their iPad and getting in on video into these meetings. So start with the business people, or at least engage with the business people. You necessarily have to start there, and make sure that you establish the why. Keep a list, even if it's just a bulleted list of what we're trying to accomplish here. Every time you go back and evaluate a solution, and I don't think I have this on here, but I wanted to say also is evaluate multiple solutions. Don't just look at Lync. Look at everything out there on the market. Because if you go to a CIO or whoever's going to be paying for a project and just talk about Lync, they're going to wonder what else is out there. They're going to wonder why you didn't bring up the other stuff. And if you can come up to them and say, hey, we gathered information from the business, we gathered information from IT, we had some goals, and this solution could do this solution could do that, and clearly this one meets our goals, our vision better. Hey, you're gonna look really good there. Don't overcommit cost savings. So I've seen this a lot. This happens in so many different things. I mean, if you overcommit, you can just look bad, right? You want to undercommit and look great when you save more money. But really, it's really important to not overcommit on cost savings. Round things up, make them more expensive than they might be, because that could happen. I was working with a company on a business case, and the price of the gateways after a recent acquisition in the last couple of years went up. And we had built the business case on one price point. When we went to buy them, the price point had increased by a significant amount. If we had put in a little bit more of a pad there, we wouldn't have been hurting on that. But instead, we had to go back to the business and say, hey, we actually need like $100,000 more dollars. And that made us look bad. So don't overcommit. Watch out for licensing maintenance. So this crazy guy here, this gets people a lot. And Microsoft might get a little annoyed by this, but they sell licensing, and maybe they forget to tell people that in 3 years you got to re-up that licensing to get the next version, things like that, right? It's a different model than many organizations had done before. If you bought a phone system, you bought all the phones, and that kind of just stayed there for as long as it could, right? But now with Lync, and especially since they're releasing new things so often, you want the next version when it comes out. You want support for it. So don't forget about those maintenance costs. Also, do not forget about non-UC components. What I mean by that is networking gear, desktop deployments. So are you going to have to upgrade some of your desktops to support Lync? Are you going to have to roll out Lync, right? Some organizations have to pay, have a managed service for their desktops, or even just if it's done internally, you might have to, that's a lot of time, right, to build a package for Office, build a new OS build and deploy it. That's a lot of work. VPN, so this comes up a lot. Cisco just recently finally have VPN-less access to their solution, but they won't really include that in the cost when they did need VPN, right? So when you're going head-to-head with Cisco, for example, you may in the past have, Lync has the edge server, right? You can connect in remotely. Well, Cisco, you needed ASAs with VPN and all this special stuff to get in from remote, and that's something that can get left out. It's more expensive. Don't forget the committed costs again. The lease symbol up here, but you're going to have things in the organization that some guy's going to come up with. For example, if we're talking about SIP trunking. SIP trunking, the whole idea to save money there is consolidate down all those old connections into less connections and save money. Well, those contracts sometimes are signed out a couple years, 7 years maybe, right? And then you go to deploy this SIP trunking, but you can't get rid of that old connection without paying a fee. Same thing with an old PBX. You might still have a year of maintenance left on it. Or you could have leased the hardware. Or instead of paying for the hardware up front, you did like a yearly payment that was committed, right? And it's not necessarily a lease, but it was maybe like a loan type, type of payment, installment payments. Also, endpoints aren't cheap. So I talked about this a couple times, and I just can't stress it enough. The Lync headsets are great. Some of the higher end headsets cost more than phones. People want those cool wireless headsets, but they're expensive. Even, really the cheapest Lync certified headset is usually at like the $40 price point to be decent quality. I think you can go a bit lower, but you're not often buying those. So just watch out that stuff adds up. And then don't forget about conference room phones, lobby phones, desk phones. All of these things can really start to add up. Like I said before, it can be up to, what I've seen is up to 50% of the cost of Lync is endpoints. You do the math and it adds up really fast. And then find unique ways to save the business money. So what I talked about in the beginning was the frustrated users, the beat down old processes that the organization has, the things that are slowing people down from innovating, from building things, from getting that widget built faster, right? Find ways to save the business money, because then you're going to look good, look even better. And this is how you're going to keep saving money year on year. If you go and deploy Lync and don't do any of this, you're going to save money on conferencing the first year or two, but then things are going to flatline, right? And you really want to find ways to keep improving the business, improving the user experience, and save the business money. And another thing here is explaining the risks, okay? So we can talk about ROI, when we're going to start seeing that money coming back, but that that has a few dependencies, right? One big dependency is people using it. So if you're going to replace WebEx with Lync, you better be sure that you shut off those WebEx accounts. And you better make sure that Lync is working really well so that people don't find other solutions to use that are costing money. An example is working with a customer right now, and we have this whole business case built, this awesome project plan. Everything was going to go smoothly. We're going to be able to replace the PBX and everything before they have to renew maintenance in June. Well, they had problems with their Office deployment because of add-ins with Office and stuff like that. So that puts a halt to the entire project. That means they had to renew some WebEx licenses. They're probably going to have to renew maintenance on a PBX. I mean, this is the stuff that can really start to ruin the whole business case. But as long as you identify those risks up front, you're going to be better off. Yeah.
On a recent project, when we did the ROI, looking at the benefits of moving to SIP and Lync and all that sort of stuff, when we got to the end of the project, the usage had changed.
Yeah.
People were doing like Talk to Mobile and Siri and all that sort of stuff. So actually, the cost savings in calls was reduced. Would you class that as an ROI risk, but it's like versus the business benefit, or like where would you sort of capture that sort of shift in use case?
Yeah, that's interesting. So the question was really around, when you started out with this, you're going to identify usage analysis, right? You're going to say people, even in your case, it was with SimRing and things like that actually starting to cost more probably in toll charges, right, and usage costs. You also have situations with conferencing, right? You may base your, for example, dial-in conferencing usage maybe based on one amount. So you buy SIP trunks for that, right? Turns out a lot more people dial into conferences and you have to buy more SIP trunks. So that is a risk. That is definitely something that you should, when you do this, you should identify, it's almost like the cover page of this is what we assume, and if these things change, then that number changes. So that's kind of what that is. So kind of continuing on with that around some best practices on how do I make the experience stand out, right? So what should I do? This is kind of like the little call to action, right? Like, great, you told me we should focus on the experience. This is how we can possibly save money. So how do you do it? The best thing that I've seen is that you really have to have an official plan here and an official team of people. The reason why I say that is you're going to have the Lync guys, you're going to have the Exchange guys, networking, business people. You need everybody involved in the organization to work on this together. There's a couple reasons for that. One is that it will make sure that everybody's on board. You don't want to go and exclude the telephony team from your decision to put in Lync, right? You want to have a big team experience here, bring everybody together, have everybody agree on this. And two, it's just going to be the easiest way for you to identify all those costs. Like I said, you start involving people from the business or from other departments, you'll realize that, hey, they're spending money on X. Let's see if we can reduce that. You want to analyze multiple solutions. So I highly encourage everybody to look at other solutions other than Lync and to just make sure that it's the right choice. And a perfect example of this, and Microsoft earmuffs, they're out there, but if you want, you just want phones, like you literally just have a small office that just wants handsets to make calls, Lync's probably not the right choice because that's expensive, right? You need to really be invested in deploying the full package of Lync and using the full package of Lync for the cost to make sense. It doesn't make sense as well to put Lync as a solution against just a PBX, right? And I think I forgot to mention this before, that's something that I have had happen before, is the reason why we want to combine our thing into a UC business case is that if you take Lync and compare it to a Cisco PBX or an Avaya PBX, it's more expensive. And that's because Lync does more, right? It just does. So if you then take the PBX and add in the WebEx costs and the audio conferencing costs, that's where you notice it explodes to be more expensive. So that's why we do a unified communications business case, so that we can compare, if I go with X PBX and Y this and, all these different solutions, how much does that cost? If I go with Lync, it costs this much. That's our UC business case. The reason why I say analyze multiple solutions is that, again, Lync is not free, and actually sometimes Lync is more expensive. I can tell you that actually in a lot of cases, Lync is more expensive in the first year than any other solution. I actually saw something that just came out today that was a report that showed, on average it will be I forget what organization size it was, I apologize, but it was, you invest $3 million the first year, and then finally in year 5 you get $6 million back, right? I mean, you'll definitely see a spike in Lync costs, and then it goes down. So a lot of organizations are taken back by that. They're surprised by it. They've been told by whomever that Lync is cheap and free, and cheaper than Cisco, cheaper than Avaya. But then when you look at the numbers, they're actually really close or a little bit more expensive. But it's much cheaper to run. And there's many more ways you can save money by using CBP, by improving user productivity, things like that. The other important part about forming a team is voting. I've worked with this methodology a few times now in the past 3 years around getting everybody's input. There's a couple reasons for that. One is you can hold everybody accountable for it in the end, right? Is, hey, let's get all the teams together and vote. Let's see if everybody's okay with this. And, that includes the features and user experience. What you'll find today is that every vendor out there has all the features. It's not about features anymore, right? Everybody can do the same thing. Maybe slightly different codecs. Maybe somebody can do slightly higher def video than the other person. Maybe somebody's already rolled out 4K cameras and 4K screens. But when it comes down to the basic features, everybody has it. It's about the experience, right? How many apps do I have to have installed on my iPhone to use your solution? Is it 1? Is it 3? Do I need to connect to VPN, right? Start weighting those user experiences instead of the features. I think the biggest enemy to Lync, and if you're in a position to control this, is an RFP, a traditional RFP with 10 Excel spreadsheets that says you need to check these boxes. Because it's just not about that anymore. It shouldn't be about that. It is often, but it really shouldn't be. And unfortunately, what I've found is that if you go head-to-head with a competitor of Lync, in that situation you will lose, because they have a lot more codecs. They have a lot more, you can do 7 line appearances in this funky scenario and hotkey combination, and hey, it works great. But what they don't have is the user experience. And a lot of people miss that. That can translate directly to dollars, right? The user experience is very important, because I've actually, I've worked on a solution before where Cisco was actually cheaper than Lync, which is actually kind of crazy to say out loud, but they were. But the problem is you have to assume that given that there's 3 applications to use, or it's a less, it's not as good of a user experience, it's not going to get adopted as widely. That's an ROI risk, right? If people don't use it, we don't make any money back. So it needs to be easy to use. It needs to be really focused on the experience. So that's why that's important. And obviously analyze the financials. Financials are very important. That's what makes the accounting people happy. That's what's going to get you your budget. And then I like to say we take a cumulative score, right? So whatever that is somebody's going to make a decision on this. But looking at the whole picture, the user experience, the features, the money, long-term benefits, and use that to come up with what your solution should be. And then what it comes down to is at the end, you've done your homework. You've done every bit of homework possible. And if somebody says, yes, you're good to go, great. You have everything to back it up. If they don't, you did all the work that you could, and it doesn't look, I often find that IT departments get in trouble for trying to squeeze stuff in, right? Self-deploy, self-push, be it a deployment that comes from the bottom up. And if you want Lync to be successful in your organization, it needs to come from the top down, at least as high up as you can get. Doesn't necessarily have to be sea level, but that always is nice. You really want buy-in from somebody up top to push it down on the people. And this is kind of my methodology to making that all happen. So I think I talked a lot faster than I was supposed to. But I'll tell you what, we can do questions and closing, and then everybody can get a head start on getting to the party and partying in Vegas. So does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
When it comes to cost, obviously there's a lot of variables, but do you find that Lync tends to be more expensive the bigger your organization gets, or how does that scale?
Yeah, so the question was, and I'm just repeating for the recording usually, but the question was, is Lync more expensive as the organization gets bigger, or how does that scale? And it's actually the opposite. So it's actually really expensive for small organizations, especially if you're looking at just PBX, right? As the organization gets bigger, the endpoint costs go up and really add up, but it becomes easier to justify against other solutions. That's why it's really important to find ways that it makes more sense for the business, because it's easy to get a PBX for a lot cheaper than you can buy Lync, but it's not cheaper to get a full UC solution, right? So it's really important to bundle that together. Yeah. Yeah. So my approach on it recently has been that I obviously would love to do this for all companies, right? That's my business making money. But I think it's really important for the benefit of the greater good, and it might sound a little cheesy saying that, is to kind of spread the word and encourage people to start doing that to be successful. I've had a lot of experience in that. We typically, you don't need a consultant to come in and do this whole thing, but getting the push in the right direction really goes a long way. This model definitely fits with larger organizations, right? But you can also, as an individual, take this same methodology and implement it on your own, right? You be the only one on the team, but you go out and gather the information from all the business people, and just don't forget about all the things that are, in the slide around using that. But in the larger organizations, you absolutely have to have a team, or else this will fall apart, because whether it's internal politics, whatever, most often internal politics, you'll lose that battle because people will feel left out, and you'll miss things. So, yep. Any other questions? Okay, so couple really, really important things. Let's see, this is not important. This is important. Attendee party tonight. There's shuttles downstairs, I know, running. Hands-on labs, these are really cool. If you guys are still here tomorrow, definitely check them out. And I know that they're streaming them online. The MyLync app, if people haven't seen this yet, mylync.linkconference.com or linkconf.com. And what I was told is that, come on, fill out the evals. I guess there hasn't been a good turnout on evals. And they're giving away free stuff. So even if you don't have an opinion, or you want to tell me that I was really good or really bad, fill out your evals, because you could win some, maybe it's cool gadgety stuff, I don't know. So thank you guys for coming out. Have fun tonight. Have fun with the rest of the conference. Hopefully everybody has fun in Vegas. So thanks.